Hello, today I'm here to talk to you about assignment number 7, your research project. So I just want to point out at the bottom here, there's tons of extra resources to help you with this assignment. I specifically really like the Purdue OWL's online writing lab. It's going to help you with MLA citation. Just want to point that out, but let's go into the project. So you need to research and write a report either on option A or option B. I'll have you guys read through that on your own and decide what you want to do. But what you'll be doing is writing a biographical report on the author or artist, and in your report you're going to include the following. So the first thing is a brief examination of the author's life, including their early life, family, education, anything you think is relevant. Then you're going to give the general historical context of the time. So what was going on politically, socially, in the world, in their community that perhaps influenced their writing or their work. Then you also want to include other major works by this author and the tone of those works. So is everything they do satirical, or do they switch it up? And you're going to talk about that. Then you're going to include at least one image of the author, and lastly, at least one other opinion of the author. So what do others say about them and their importance in or to society? So you could look at things like Twitter, or a critical or positive review of that person. You can figure out what it is you want, but what are others saying about them? Now, because this is a report, you have a little bit more freedom in terms of how it looks. It doesn't have to look like an essay. You could write it chronologically. You could have headings for each section. So if you were doing each section, I would say at least one paragraph for each area, and then you'll be able to get into that 750 to 1,000 word length requirement. One thing it talks about here is being careful of using in-text citations, which I will talk about in a second, as well as being careful of Mosaic plagiarism. So what Mosaic plagiarism is, if I say dogs are the most loyal animals on earth, and took that and said on earth, dogs are considered to be the most loyal, all I've done is taken those words and moved them around, but essentially I'm still stealing that sentence. It's not my own thoughts, okay? So what you're going to do is you're going to do all this research, you're going to collect all this information. As you're collecting the information, you should be writing down where you got it from, including the author, the title of the source, all of that stuff. And then you want to sit down and start writing your report. Anything that you write without looking at your resources, that's you. That's your brain, that's what you've remembered, that's what you've learned. The minute you look at your research and start putting that information in, either in a quote or a paraphrase, it needs a citation, okay? And so we'll talk about those different types in just a second. At the bottom here, this is really helpful, the MLA Quick Guide. It's also in the resource section in the bigger part of our Moodle course, but we'll take a look at it right now. So this is a really great example of what the difference is between a full citation and an in-text citation. If this was a book, this is the full citation of the book. This is what would go on your works cited or references page at the very end of your report. In your actual paragraph, where you do the paraphrase or the direct quote from this book, the sentence needs to be followed with an in-text citation that looks like this. Okay? So most of us won't be using books, we'll be using online resources. So there's some information there on that, as well as if you're using a website without any authors, or if it's a website rather than an article, here's some information on that. And lastly, audio-visual, maybe you use a YouTube video to get some information, okay? This is the full citation. This is the in-text citation. So I'm going to go to this. So I have an example here. It has nothing to do with authors, but it does show us what we're trying to do. So this one's called The Awesomeness of Kevin Durant. I have an image here, and right away underneath I have an in-text citation, the author of who created this image, all right? Then I've got my paragraph. So Kevin Durant was born on September 28th, 1988. I'd like to pretend that that's knowledge that I just know in my head, but it's not. I got that from somewhere, so I have an in-text citation here in parenthesis. He grew up playing sports with all of his siblings, especially his sister. That's knowledge that I know. In 2007, after just 1 year of college basketball, he was drafted into the NBA to the Seattle Supersonics. Again, that was not just knowledge I had, so it's now a citation. Kevin Durant got a lot of hate when he decided to play for the Golden State Warriors. I know that. I've remembered that, so I don't need to cite that. And then I have, according to social media statistics, Kevin is the second most hated NBA player. And I have another citation here. So all of these in the brackets are called in-text citations. The type how you do this will change depending on what the source is from. So if it was a YouTube, it would look different. If it was a book, it would look different, but it's always shorter. One thing I want to point out is anytime there's no author, it tends to be the title of the article, and you'll see why in just a second. And so if the article's really long, it doesn't want the whole title. So if the article was Kevin Durant is the best player of all time, I would just use the quotations Kevin Durant. Okay. So this is the full work cited. So for the photo, this is the full work cited citation. For costly, which is here, this is the full citation. And then for the Kevin Durant article, this is the full citation. A couple things I want to point out. These are in alphabetical order. B, C, K. So they need to be in alphabetical order. And the last little trick I'll show you, especially if you're using Word, is that these ask you to be have a hanging indent. In order to do that, what you're going to do is copy all this. When you get into your paragraph up here, one of the options under special is to do a hanging indent. And if I say okay, look at that. So anyways, that's just a few tips about this assignment. If you have any more questions, please reach out to your instructor. But remember, you have to have in-text citations. If you don't have them, it's considered plagiarism, and that's a big issue. So hopefully this helps. And again, if you have questions, reach out to your instructor.